Hi everyone, I'm Professor Sri. Welcome to the session on fabrics, in particular aircraft fabrics. Subscribe to the channel to learn more about engineering and management, science and technology stuff. These are the contents of the video: introduction, history, nomenclature, aircraft fabrics, covering process, modern covering processes like AirTech, polyfiber, Superflite, and Stewart processes. Let me introduce the video. Aircraft fabric covering. It is a term used for both the material used and the process of covering aircraft open structures. It is also for reinforcing closed plywood structures. Purposes of fabric covering of an aircraft are to provide a light airproof skin for lifting and control surfaces, to provide structural strength to otherwise weak structures, to cover other non-linear parts of an aircraft to reduce drag, sometimes forming a fairing, and then to protect the structures from the elements. The fabrics also have some issues with its flammability and lack of durability. Fabrics covered aircraft play an important role in the history of aviation. Initially, they were utilized as fabric covered wood frame in its design, and fabric covering continued to be used by many aircraft designers and builders during the early decades of production aircraft. The use of fabric covering on an aircraft offers one primary advantage, that is, lightweight. We humans, the rational beings, started using fabrics as far back as 1 to 5 lakh years. The first known use of aircraft fabrics was before the period of Wright brothers. The first work on modern aviation started off by the great Sir George Cayley. He is considered to be one of the most important people in the history of aeronautics and is often referred to as the father of aeronautics. He discovered and identified the four forces which act on a heavier than air flying vehicle, that is, weight, lift, drag, and thrust. Carl Wilhelm Otto Lilienthal, or known as Carl Lilienthal, is another pioneer in aeronautics. He is famous to be known as the Flying Man. He was the first person to make well-documented, repeated, successful flights with gliders. These pioneer aviators, Sir George Cayley and Otto Lilienthal, used cotton-covered flying surfaces for their manned glider designs. This is the first account of the use of fabrics in aeronautics. Then came the legendary Wright Flyer. Any aeronautic enthusiast know this because it was the first successful heavier than air powered aircraft, or simply it is the first aircraft to fly. You all know it was designed and built by the famous Wright brothers, Orville and Wilbur Wright. Wright brothers also used cotton to cover their Wright Flyer. Other earlier aircraft used a variety of fabrics like silk and linen being commonly used. Some early aircraft such as Sir A.V. Roe's Avro Company, its first machines, even used paper as a covering material. At last stages came the process of doping, and it changed the way of using aircraft fabrics in a whole different level. Then there was your World War I and World War II, where some major changes happened in aviation industries and its research and technology, which resulted in better and better aircraft fabrics like the emergence of synthetic materials. Hence the present modern aircraft fabrics. Nomenclature. Some of the terms in fabrics are warp and weft, where warp means longitudinal or lengthwise weaving of thread or yarn, and weft means the transverse weaving and the thread is inserted over and under the wrap. Count is the number of threads per inch in warp or weft. Ply is the number of yarns making up the thread. Bias, it is a cut, fold, or seam made diagonally to the warp or weft threads. Pinked edge, it is the edge which has been cut by machine or special pinking shears in a continuous series to prevent raveling. Salvage edge, it is the edge of cloth, tape, or webbing woven to prevent raveling. Gredge, it is a condition of polyester fabric upon completion of the production process before being heat shrunk. Cross coat, brushing or spraying when the second coat is applied at right angle to the direction the first coat was applied. The two coats together make a single coat. Fabric materials. There are different fabric materials. What I am discussing here is some of the fabric materials of different company and their trademark names. Starting off with Seconite 101. They are extra heavy duty fabric recommended for the most severe operating conditions and very high wing loading aircraft. Its large filament size and high strength provide excellent resistance to rock penetration and tearing, characteristics required for trouble-free brush and agricultural operations. It is suitable for all aircraft where a very tough, durable, low elongation, high tension fabric is required. They are used in some of the aerobatic planes, bush planes, agricultural aircraft, and warbirds. Seconite 102, which looks similar to 101. 102, they are recommended for normal services and is widely used on all types of aircraft, regardless of wing loading or horsepower. They are used in some of the classic aircrafts, antiques, and contemporary designs that anticipate normal on-airport operations. Superflite, Superflite 101, 102, and 104. So, SF-101 are used mainly for warbirds and bush planes. SF-102 are used on the majority of all general aviation light aircraft. SF-104 are uncertified material and are used for some custom-made aircraft. Polyfiber Heavy Duty 3 are for severe operating conditions and very high wing loading aircraft where a very tough, durable, long elongation, high tension fabric is required and weight is not that critical. It's great for agriculture, aerobatic, and bush planes. Polyfiber Medium 3 are for normal services and is widely used on all types of aircraft regardless of wing loading or horsepower. Polyfiber light fabric, they are uncertified by FAA, which are for covering ultralight aircraft. This fabric will be unstamped. It is not approved by certified aircraft except on plywood surface. Grade A cotton, This new fabric, which could be glued to the airframe instead of sewn, and then heat shrunk to fit it. Grade A cotton would typically last 6 to 7 years when the aircraft is stored outside. And then you have many more aircraft fabrics. Like some materials are called supplemental fabric materials, which is used to complete a fabric covering job as per manufacturer's instruction or a clientele. Some of the supplemental fabrics are anti-shaft tape, reinforcing tape, rib bracing, surface tape, rib lacing cord, sewing thread, special fabric fasteners, grommets, inspection rings, primer, fabric cement, sealers, fillers, top coats, and many more, which will be discussed in the coming sessions of aircraft fabrics. The next topic is fabric covering processes. Mainly, there are two types. One is the traditional method, and another is the modern method. Traditional covering methods use organic materials such as cotton. Once the aircraft structure is prepared by sanding, the material is applied using dope as an adhesive. Rib stitching is used on faster aircraft types and especially on under-cambered airfoil to ensure that the fabric follows the aircraft structure. The distance between stitches is reduced in areas affected by the propeller wash. The covering would then be treated with tautening dope. Here, tautening means to make it tight or taut. So, tautening dope to remove wrinkles and increase structural strength. Finish coats often contain aluminum powder, which would serve to protect the surface from ultraviolet light. Large fabric panels of World War I era aircraft were often laced together through eyelets to ease access to the internal structure for maintenance. Some disadvantages compared to modern methods are the relatively shorter service life of the covering due to biological effects such as mildew organism and labor required to achieve the end result. The second is modern method of covering. They follow the traditional method with minor differences. Synthetic materials are used and covering is adhered to the structure using dedicated glues. With both methods of covering, it is normal for the aircraft to be reweighted after renewal of the fabric to determine any change in mass and center of gravity. Modern method of covering process. At present times, everything is about modern method. Henceforth, this video is also about that. The modern method of covering mainly focuses on the polyester fabrics. They are mainly different processes which are followed by different companies. These companies are pioneers in the world aviation sector. So now, coming to the different modern methods. First one is AirTech covering system, also called as AirTech coating, which is a company, is solvent-based, non-automotive polyurethane fabric covering system. Both the primer or sealer and top coats have been formulated out of flexible based polyurethane just for aircraft use. This means that unlike automotive paints, there is no flex additive that needs to be added when mixing the primer or paint before spraying. Completing a fabric job with AirTech materials is easy when compared to alternative systems. Little sanding is required for a smooth, high gloss finish. Fewer coats drastically reduce the time required for the job, and AirTech kits include all the materials necessary for the normal job. So, the AirTech's 4 easy steps are: number 1, cover the aircraft with heat shrinkable polyester fabric. Number 2, spray 3 wet cross coats of AirTech fabric primer. Number 3, sand is needed. Number 4, and the final one, spray 2 coats of AirTech flexible polyurethane color coat. Then voila, you get the AirTech covered aircraft. Polyfiber covering system. It is a paint and coating system done by the company Polyfiber. Now the question is, why do you want to use polyfiber system? Polyfiber is the only all vinyl system. As it dries, it bonds extremely well to polyester fabrics and remain flexible. There is no combustion involved here, and it is an 8 coating system. So this coating here, its weight is adjustable. They are also easily repairable and can withstand harsh weather conditions. Basically, there are 6 steps in the process. Step 1, glue on the fabric with the fabric cement and tighten it with the heat of a calibrated clothing iron. Step 2, brush on a coat of polybrush fabric sealer. Step 3, rib lace, which is a type of fabric weaving, and then apply gussets and finishing tapes with the more polybrush. Step 4, spray on 2 more coats of polybrush. Step 5, spray on 3 cross coats of silver polyspray to block ultraviolet radiations. Finally, the last step, 6, is to spray on 2 more coats of top coat paints. This gives you the polyfiber coating system and hence the covering system. Next covering process is Superflite covering system. Here when I am saying Superflite covering, it's the latest system, that is Superflite System 7. There are some other systems like SF System 1 and System 6 which were popular to some extent, but before it was System 7. SF System 7. So now coming back to SF System 7, U500 glue is used for attaching both the fabric to the airframe and the surface tapes to the fabric. Acetone or methyl ethyl ketone (MEK) can be used to thin the U500 to the proper viscosity. This adhesive acts as a barrier in glued areas and prevent the primer from wicking underneath the fabric. Wicking occurs when the primer slips under the fabric instead of soaking into the weave as it is intended. And finally, you have to use a gravity feed gun for spraying both the primer and the paint. This system can also do troubleshooting process and then repair it. At last, the most modern covering process, Stewart finishing system. In the past, the only way to safely cover or paint an aircraft required the use of solvents that were very toxic, flammable, and hazardous to the environment, as well as unpleasant to work with. The company Stewart Systems uses modern waterborne coating technology. All the fabric covering and painting products are non-hazardous and non-flammable. Stewart finishing systems are durable, lightweight than other covering processes, more flexible, and fewer materials are needed. Here is the brief procedure of Stewart finishing process. Preparing surfaces for fabric attachment, attaching fabric to the airframe, application of EcoBond cement, calibrating electric irons, heat tautening of fiber, application of reinforcing tape and rib lacing, application of finish tape, application of inspection rings, drain holes and grommets. Then finishing ironing, application of ecofill, surface preparation of color codes, spraying a test pattern, application of primer, application of color coat, masking for application of trim colors, and then at last, if needed, repairing the fabric. So in this session, topics discovered were some introduction to the topic, history of aircraft fabrics, its nomenclature, different fabrics in use, covering process, both traditional and modern. Then we have engaged in some of the covering processes used nowadays by some pioneer industries like AirTech covering system, polyfiber covering system, Superflite covering system 7, and lastly the most modern one, Stewart finishing system. With this, we have come to the end of the video. Once again, subscribe to the channel and press the bell icon to stay tuned to the upcoming videos. Thank you and bye-bye.